In life, events are not always what they seem. Often, we rush to judge what happens to us as good or bad, without seeing the bigger picture. But what if everything is simply part of the natural flow of existence? Today, I will tell you an ancient Zen story that will change the way you view life. A story about calm, wisdom, and acceptance of the present. Join me on this reflective journey. Once upon a time, there was an elderly farmer who lived in a small village surrounded by mountains and vast fields. He was a calm man, with a serene look and a heart at peace with life. He wasn't easily disturbed, and his philosophy of life was simple: accept everything that comes without clinging or resisting. One day, his only horse ran away. The news spread quickly throughout the village, and the neighbors, full of pity, came to his house to console him. "What bad luck you have!" they exclaimed sorrowfully. The old man, with a slight smile, shrugged and replied, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" The neighbors looked at each other, confused by his lack of concern. But the farmer said no more. He simply went on with his life, working the land and trusting the flow of the universe. A few days later, the horse returned, but it didn't come back alone. It brought with it a herd of wild horses. The news spread quickly, and this time the neighbors came with expressions of astonishment and joy. "What great fortune you have!" they exclaimed. The old man, without changing his serene expression, simply repeated, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" The wild horses were strong and beautiful. They could mean wealth, work, or even trouble. But the farmer didn't rush to label the event. He just observed and accepted what life brought him, without resistance or attachment. Soon after, the farmer's son, a strong and hardworking young man, decided to tame one of the wild horses. He mounted the animal, but the untamed and powerful steed reared and threw him to the ground violently. The young man fell heavily and broke a leg. When the neighbors heard, they immediately came to the farmer's house, with expressions of sadness and concern. "What misfortune!" they exclaimed. "Now your son won't be able to help you in the fields. This is really bad luck." The old man, with the same calm as always, looked at his son, who was resting in bed with his leg bandaged, and replied, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" The neighbors were silent, unsure of what to say. To them, it was clear that what had happened was a calamity. However, the farmer seemed to see life from a different perspective, one they did not fully understand yet. As the days passed, the young man had to stay at home, resting and recovering. Though it was difficult at first, he slowly began to accept his situation, influenced by his father's serenity. In his stillness, he began to observe life in a different way, discovering things he had never noticed before due to his constant activity. Weeks later, the kingdom's army passed through the village. They were recruiting all the healthy young men to send them to war, a distant battle from which few returned. The soldiers inspected each home and took the neighbors' sons, who cried in anguish as they watched their young men leave. When they reached the farmer's house, they saw the son lying in bed, still recovering from his injury. Since he was unfit for battle, they left him behind and continued on their way. The neighbors, now amazed by what had happened, ran to the old man and exclaimed, "What a blessing! Thanks to his injury, your son has been saved from the war." The farmer, with his unchanged, serene expression, replied, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" The neighbors, who had previously rushed to judge every event as good or bad, began to reflect. They realized that life has its own rhythm, and what seems like a misfortune may bring great fortune, and vice versa. Time passed, and the farmer's son fully recovered. Meanwhile, the war continued, and few young men from the village returned. Those who had once lamented the young man's injury now envied his fate. The old man, however, showed no signs of joy or sorrow. He just continued with his daily work, accepting life as it came, without resistance, without expectations. One day, a wealthy merchant from the village visited the farmer. He had heard about the wild horses and was willing to pay a large sum for them. Calmly, the old man accepted the offer and sold some of the horses, thus securing a more stable future for his family. The neighbors, upon hearing of the transaction, went back to their homes excitedly. "What great fortune! Now you are a rich man." The farmer, with his unshakable tranquility, replied, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" With the money he earned, he was able to buy better tools and seeds to improve his crops. However, not long after, a fierce storm swept through the village, destroying much of the harvest and leaving many families in a desperate situation. The neighbors returned to the farmer, lamenting his loss. "What a terrible misfortune! All your efforts have been in vain." But the old man, as always, simply said, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" Despite the loss, the farmer still had enough to survive thanks to his prudence and his earlier sale. His balance and acceptance allowed him to move forward without distress. A few months later, a new harvest grew more vigorously than expected. Thanks to the land renewed by the storm, the farmer's crops yielded more than ever. The neighbors, surprised, came to congratulate him. "What a marvel! Now you have the best harvest of all." The old man, with his same calm demeanor, replied, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows?" The surplus harvest allowed him to trade goods with other villagers, ensuring that his family and many others could get through the hardest months. Soon, his farm became a symbol of stability and generosity in the village. The old man, however, continued with his daily routine, without attachment or pride in what he had. He knew that everything in life is temporary and that the important thing is to maintain serenity, no matter the situation. One day, a wise traveler arrived in the village and heard the story of the farmer. Intrigued, he decided to visit him to learn his perspective on life. When he found him, the old man was working on his land, planting with patience and care. "I have heard of you and your wisdom," said the traveler. "Tell me, how do you manage to stay so serene through everything that happens?" The old man smiled and replied simply, "Life flows like a river. Sometimes it brings calm and sometimes storms. You cannot cling to the good nor reject the bad, because everything changes. The only thing you can do is accept each moment as it is." The traveler reflected on his words and stayed several days with the farmer, observing his way of life. He learned that true peace does not come from controlling events but from letting go of the need to control them. Before leaving, the traveler thanked him. "You have taught me more than any book or teacher. Now I understand that happiness does not depend on luck, but on the attitude with which we face life." The old man nodded calmly and went back to his work as the traveler walked away, his heart filled with gratitude and a new understanding of the world. Time passed, and the farmer continued to cultivate his land with the same serenity. Each season brought its challenges and blessings, but he never hurried to label the events. His life remained peaceful, full of patience and presence. One day, a young man from the village approached the farmer, somewhat worried. "I've been watching how you live," said the young man. "Everyone considers you wise, but don't you worry about the future? Don't you fear what might come, the difficulties that life will bring?" The old man looked at the young man with compassion, not rushing to respond. After a long moment of silence, he said, "The future is a river that has not yet arrived. Living worried about what has not happened yet is like trying to stop the water of a river with your hands. The flow of the future will come in its time, and when it comes, you will already be ready. It's not about fearing what will come, but living fully what is." The young man reflected on his words, but still felt unease in his heart. He wanted to learn to let go of fear, but it was difficult. "And how can I do that?" he asked, seeking something more practical. The farmer smiled slightly, as if he had expected that question. "Look at how I work the field," he said, pointing to his crops. "I don't worry about the weather that will come. If it rains, I celebrate the rain. If there's sun, I celebrate the sun. Each day brings its own rhythm, and I adapt to that rhythm without resistance. Instead of fighting what comes, I seek to understand what the present moment offers me. The key is not to anticipate the future, but to be aware of the now." The young man watched the farmer working in silence, moving his hands with skill and patience. Something inside him began to calm. Although he still had many questions, he felt that a small seed of wisdom was beginning to germinate in his heart. Soon, the farmer's life returned to being as serene as always. The neighbors, who had once looked at him with curiosity, began to see the beauty of his calm and balanced approach. The events of life, both good and bad, seemed to be just part of a larger whole, and the farmer, like a rock in the river, remained steady before any current. One day, a strong wind began to blow, sweeping away some of the crops around the village. The villagers, fearful for their own crops, ran to the farmer to seek comfort. "What a disaster!" they exclaimed. "The wind has destroyed our crops. How will we survive this year?" The old man observed the damage in silence, showing neither surprise nor disdain. Then, with his characteristic calm, he responded, "Good luck? Bad luck? Who knows? This wind has taken what was no longer needed. Perhaps it will open space for something new. We don't know what will come, but instead of lamenting, we should make use of what remains, because what we lost no longer belongs to us." The neighbors remained silent, meditating on his words. Although they still felt uncertain, a small spark of understanding began to ignite in their hearts. Maybe the farmer was right. Not everything that seemed bad was truly bad, and not everything good would last forever. Life was a constant flow, and the important thing was how one navigated it. As the years passed, the farmer continued to live the same way, always in harmony with the natural course of things. Difficult moments came and went, and blessings also came in their time. He never let either of them disturb him. His life was a testament to the wisdom of letting go, of living in the present without clinging to the past or fearing the future. The neighbors, now wiser, began to imitate his way of living. They stopped rushing to judge every event, and instead, they learned to accept life as it was, with its ups and downs, its surprises, and its lessons. They learned that true peace is not found in controlling circumstances, but in finding calm within oneself. One day, the farmer sat on his porch, watching the sunset. His face, as always, showed an unwavering serenity. The young man who had asked him about the future years ago returned, no longer so restless or worried. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me," said the young man, "and I think I finally understand. Life is not about avoiding suffering or seeking constant happiness. It's about living with acceptance, flowing with the current without trying to resist." The old man nodded slowly, as if he knew that the young man had found his own understanding. "That's right," he said softly. "Life will always be uncertain, but if we learn to accept what is, we will find a peace that does not depend on circumstances. Wisdom is not in what happens, but in how we respond to it." The young man said goodbye with a calm smile, grateful for the lessons he had learned from the farmer. As he walked away, the wind blew gently around him, and he finally understood what it meant to be carried by the flow of life.